This playthrough is rated M for mature.
Greetings and salutations, viewers. Vauldemare back here with more Hakuōki, Stories of the Shinsengumi. In the last episode, we found ourselves prisoners of the Shinsengumi, and we got introduced to everyone and all of their personalities, but now they've decided my fate. But now I must decide. While they're deciding my fate, I will decide my own fate. Do I find a way to escape, or I attempt to explain the situation? Well, you know, it'd be easier for me to just choose and have a direction, but I thought, why not make it a little bit more fun? I'm going to roll some dice to figure out which direction I want to go. I have here, which you cannot see, a 6-sided die. I will roll it. Odds are even. I will find a way to escape. Odds, I will attempt to explain my situation. Here we go. We have odds. So now, odd was attempt to explain my situation, I think it was. Okay. In the future, it's going to be even's going to be the top answer, and odds is going to be bottom unless I have multiple answers. So I rolled a 1. So I am going to attempt to explain my situation. Here we go. I would perhaps tell them the truth. Perhaps if I did, they'd understand my predicament. Perhaps they think I'm from Kyoto as well. If I told them I'd only just arrived in Kyoto, they might lower their guard, or so I hoped. I didn't know anyone in Kyoto, and I'd only come to look for my father. I haven't even told them I'm a girl. The rest perhaps could wait, but I felt that it might be wise to tell them I was a girl. I took a deep breath, and then shouted as loud as I could. Excuse me! Is anyone there? After a few moments, the door slid open, and several faces appeared around the edge.
大胆だな、お前さん。補習の身分で俺らを呼びつけるか。
Oh, I sometimes, even though there's a lot of text, sometimes Japanese doesn't translate exactly the same amount of words. Well, you got some balls, I'll give you that. Got you locked up, but that doesn't stop you from yelling for us. He looked a little impressed.
で、自分から声をかけてくるなんざ。そろそろ腹も決まったのか。
Alright, you called for us. Here we are. Have you made up your mind about dying? Well, he was right. I had called them over. I took a deep breath and spoke. I want you to hear me out.
おそらくお前の事情は汲めないだろう。それでよければ話すといい。
It is unlikely that we can sympathize with your situation. So long as you understand that, say what you wish. Saito's cold words were like a blow to my chest. The courage I'd built up rapidly began to ebb.
お前の運のなさには同情する。ま、成仏してくれな。
I sympathize with your awful luck. May you rest in peace.
ほら、男なら諦めが肝心だろ。
A man should know when to accept his fate. They all spoke as if they'd already consigned me to death. It was time to make my choice. Oh, here we go. We got another choice decision. Alright. So I'm also going to roll the die again. Like I said, I'm not going to do this from my own mental decisions. I'm going to do this by... I don't even know if you can hear me when I roll the die. Alright. So the first decision is I'm rolling a d6 again. So 1 and 2 is the first choice. 3 and 4 is the second choice. And 5 and 6 is the final choice. Alright, here we go. Alright, I rolled a 3. Decided to tell him I wasn't a boy. As Saito turned to go, I rounded on Toto to glare at him furiously.
No. なんだよ。
Hey, what's up with you? Earlier you said a man should know when to accept his fate. You don't think there's anything wrong with killing a man before hearing him out? Oh, looks like I got a point of romance for the kid character, huh? Well, I didn't expect that, but that's what I rolled. His eyes narrowed as he stared at me, as though I'd suddenly become more interesting. Probably thought I was a guy, so he's like, am I secretly into men? Or bi? Who knows?
お前さ、口の利き方に気をつけろよ。自分がどんな立場かわからないわけ。
You ought to watch your mouth. Don't you get what's going on here?
そっちこそ男らしい態度取れば、俺らの事情を素直に受け入れればいいじゃん。
Maybe you should just start acting like a man, alright? Just accept your fate. You gotta do what we gotta do. But I'm not a man. The eyes just all of a sudden, even though we've seen that picture before, but all of a sudden just seeing it open is funny. He's like, wait, what?
もしかしてさ。
Yeah, right. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, right. What are you gonna tell me? You're what? You're gonna tell me you're a girl? Yes. They're just like, what? Toto and Nagakuro's eyes went so wide, I was almost worried they might fall out of their sockets. Their mouths worked wordlessly, like a pair of fish trying desperately to breathe air.
ま、確かにそんな感じだな。体の線が女性的で柔らかいというか。
Well, I can't say I'm surprised. There's something a bit ladylike about your profile. That from all the metrosexual looking men. Alright.
そんなもんわかるか。普通女は袴なんて履かねえだろうが。
Girls can wear pants. It's just guys can't wear dresses for some reason. Otherwise, they look weird. Even though kilts are kind of dresses, and a lot of Japanese robes are kind of dressed like. How the hell are we supposed to know that? Girls aren't supposed to wear pants. Oh, the hilarity. Nagakuro's distress didn't seem to be having much effect on Saito, who regarded him with cool amusement. Perhaps he'd known the truth all along.
お前の言う通り、せめて事情くらいは聞いてやるべきだろうな。
Perhaps you do have a point. We have to at least hear you out. There I was, surrounded once again by the leaders of the Shinsengumi.
美人さんだとは思っていたんだが、まさか本当に女性だったとはな。
I did think you were rather pretty, but to think you were in fact a lady all this time. Kondo was nodding his head solemnly, over and over, as if he were agreeing with a very intelligent suggestion.
女だって聞いてから見ると女にしか見えなくなってくるんだよな。
And it's all a sense of like what people perceive as, so they perceive something until they know the truth, and then it's hard for them to go back the other way. It's happened with me before with people. Once you know she's a girl, she doesn't really look like a boy at all, does she? Something about that seemed to impress Toto.
しかし、女の子を一晩縄で縛っておくとは悪いことをしたね。
Yeah, don't you guys feel like jackasses? Then we bound a girl and left her for an entire night? Oh dear. He looked at me, his eyes concerned. Each of them took the news differently.
女だって言うが、別に証拠はないんだろ。
Well, she claims to be a girl, but it's not like we have any actual proof, right? Proof? Harada laughed. Nagakura grumbled to himself under his breath.
証拠も何も一目瞭然だろうが。なんなら脱がせてみるか。
Proof, really? Not obvious enough for you, huh? Alright, will you feel better if I strip her down? Please don't.
許さんぞ。注目の中、女子に肌をさらさせるなど言語道断。
No, you absolutely will not. Even suggesting such a thing is preposterous. Kondo shot up before I had even finished, his face bright red, but Harada's words hadn't had any malice behind them.
それが一番手っ取り早いと思ったんだ。
I just figured it was the quickest way to settle this question. He shrugged and settled back into his seat. Nagakura had crossed his arms, and his brows were knit.
しかし本当に女だって言うなら、殺しちまうのも忍びねえよな。
Well, if you really are a girl, then killing just feels kinda wrong.
男だろうが女だろうが、性別の違いは生かす理由にならねえよ。
It doesn't matter. If we have to kill her, she dies. Yeah, talking about cold. But I guess it makes sense from a story perspective. Ichikawa's words left no room for argument.
女性に限らず、そもそも人を殺すのは忍びないことです。
Gender is irrelevant. Killing in general is wrong.
今日の治安を守るために組織された私たちが無益な殺生をするわけには参りません。
We were organized to protect the public good in the city of Kyoto. We would ill serve the public good by murdering civilians in cold blood.
結局、女の子だろうが男の子だろうが、今日の平安を乱しかねないなら 話は別ですよね。
Yeah, yeah, but if this girl or boy is a threat to the peace, that's a horse of a different color. Pip pip pip, chip chip here, a couple of la-di-das. He had that grin again. The Shinsengumi didn't enjoy a shining reputation already. The rumors began to spread that their men were thirsty for blood. Things weren't likely to go well for them. They wouldn't be able to operate in Kyoto, and no one to protect the people. The city would eventually fall into chaos. I could see in their eyes that each one of them knew full well the consequences rash actions could have.
それを判断するためにも、まずは君の話を聞かせてくれるか。
Well then, we need only determine if you are a threat. Will you tell us your side of the story? I could feel all their eyes upon me. The room went quiet. My name is Hinata Yakamura. I told them everything. How I lived in Edo, I had come to Kyoto to find my father.
そうか。君も江戸の出身なのか。父上を探して遠路はるばる京に来たのか。
Oh, then you're from Edo as well, and you've come all the way to Kyoto to find your father. I could see emotion welling up in his eyes.
して、そのお父上は何をしに京へ？
What business did your father have in Kyoto? My father is a doctor. His name is Kodo Yakamura. He specializes in Western medicine.
なんだと？
What? Huh? The moment my father's name crossed my lips, the atmosphere in the room changed.
これはまさか行動氏のご息女とはね。
Oh my! So the good Dr. Kodo has a daughter! You know my father? I wasn't sure what the sudden silence meant, only that the revelation of my parentage had caused a pronounced change in their behavior. It was Saito who finally broke the silence.
行動氏の行方は現在新選組で調査している。
The Shinsengumi is currently attempting to determine the whereabouts of Dr. Koda Yukimura. You're after my father? Why?
あ、勘違いしないでね。僕たちは行動さんを狙ってるわけじゃないから。
Oh no, you got us all wrong. We're not after him. Oh, I see. Tension that I hadn't noticed appear began to dissipate.
同じ幕府側の協力者なんだけど、実は彼、ちょっと前から行方知れずでさ。
He's a fellow supporter of the shogun, but well, he's kind of disappeared a little while ago.
幕府をよく思わない者たちが行動氏に目をつけた可能性が高い。
There's a reasonable chance that the enemies of the shogun had identified him as a threat. Ah. My eyes went wide, but Saito kept talking as if I'd done nothing.
生きている降参も高い。乱方医は利用価値がある存在だ。
There is also a chance, of course, that he's still alive. Doctors trained in Western medicine are valuable and rare. I wasn't sure what else to do, so I nodded. My heart pounded in my chest, threatened to burst out onto the floor. Father, was he safe?
行動氏が見つかる可能性は君のおかげで格段に上昇しましたよ。
But with you, we have a much better chance of finding the good doctor. Huh? Sandon continued. Apparently, my father had only visited a small number of times. I understood then what he'd meant. It'd be difficult for them to track down someone they barely knew.
ですが、行動氏の娘である君ならば、身なりが変わっていようと看破できますね。
You are his daughter, however. You're able to recognize him no matter how may he disguise himself, yes? Yeah, I could. I nodded as I spoke and gave him what I hoped was a steady, reassuring smile.
あの乱歩医の娘となりゃ殺しちまうわけにもいかねえよな。
Well, if she is the daughter, we can't really kill her, can we? Which means more work for me, his eyes added. They narrowed as he looked down at me.
昨夜の件は忘れるって言うんなら、父親が見つかるまでお前を保護してやる。
If you swear, you'll forget about what you saw last night. Then we'll look after you until you find your father, yeah?
君の父上を見つけるためならば、我ら新選組は協力は惜しまんとも。
I promise that the Shinsengumi will do whatever they can to help you find Dr. Koda. Thank you very much. I never imagined something like this. Not only had I survived, I had found my first decent lead.
殺されずに済んでよかったね。とりあえずはだけど。
You must be pretty glad we won't be killing you, huh? Well, won't be killing you just now at any rate. He gave me that same wolfish grin. There was no denying that my situation was still less than desirable, but at the moment I didn't care. Yes, I am very glad. I'd been through a lot, and at least I'd found help, where I'd never have expected it, the Shinsengumi. Kyoto hadn't been kind to me, even though I'd been there less than a day, but it looked as though my fortunes were taking a turn for the better. I still had a long way to go, and I had worries aplenty, but it was important to stay optimistic.
本来であれば、ここのような男所帯より、諸次第や会津藩に預けてやりたいんだ。
I'd prefer if you place you in the custody of the judiciary commissary or the Aizu rather than keep you in a house full of men, but... Aizu Domain, one of Japan's more influential clans. They were related by blood to the Tokugawa clan and were put in charge of the office of the Kyoto Military Commission. Kondo let the sentence hang in the air and looked at me, his arms folded. It was clear I had no choice but to stay with the Shinsengumi.
不便があれば言うといい。その都度可能な範囲で対処してやる。
Should you require anything, you need only ask. We will do what we can to accommodate you. Oh. The expression didn't change, but his words were unexpectedly warm. I looked away from him awkwardly, but I still felt the heat rise in my cheeks. Thank you.
まあ、女の子となりゃ手厚くもてなさんといかんよな。
Well, I guess we'll have to be nicer to you now that we know you're a girl.
新八さん、女の子に弱いもんな。でもだからって手のひら返すの早すぎ。
You're always nice to the ladies, Shin. Sure it didn't take you long for you to change your tune once you figured out she was a girl, though, huh?
いいじゃねえか。これで豚書が華やかになると思えば、新八に限らずはしゃぎたくもなるだろう。
Ah, whatever. Having a lady here at headquarters sure gonna brighten things up, huh? Headquarters. Why do we need an explanation of what headquarters means? Headquarters 1. The headquarters of the Shinsengumi was located in the Mibu area, where members lived and took their meals. I wasn't entirely sure that would be the outcome.
大使として扱うのもまた問題ですし、彼女の処遇は少し考えなければなりませんね。
Still, we can hardly treat her as one of our soldiers. Something else must be done with her.
なら、誰かの故障にすりゃいいだろう。近藤さんとか三男さんとか。
Then make her a page or something. You want an assistant, Kanto? How about you, Zanen? I almost turned into like an Indian accent for there. From India. Jeez. Anyway, page, an assistant to a samurai or noble, traditionally a young man. He gave a small shrug. Whatever was done with me, it seemed he no longer cared.
やだな、土方さん。そういう時は言い出しっぺが責任取らなくちゃ。
Ah, come on now, Hijikata. It's your idea. Can't just pawn her off on someone else.
おお、都市のそばなら安心だ。
Ah, excellent. I believe we can trust Toshi with her. Kondo's face split into a wide smile, and he slapped his leg in agreement.
そういうことで、土方君。彼女のことよろしくお願いしますね。
Well, there you have it, Hijikata. I hope you'll take good care of her. Sandin's smile had more than a little of a mocking twist to it. Oh, sorry. Didn't notice the dot dot dots.
Temera.
You sons of bitches. That's kind of funny when you think about it. As I watched their back and forth, some of my earlier relief began to ebb away. What was going to happen to me? Sorry, I'm an itch on the... February. 1864. So apparently a month had passed or something like that. Or something similar to that. I slid the door open, and a breath of cool morning air met me. Clumps of the thick clouds trundled silently over the city, and an unusually strong wind driving them along. It's cold today. I shivered a bit and grabbed a jacket from near the door to wrap around myself. A week had passed since I had begun living in the headquarters of Shinsengumi. Okay, only a week. They allowed me to roam around the compound as I pleased, and I was given a room of my own. They weren't the best accommodations, but given that they had very nearly murdered me instead, I thought it was best not to complain. Still, I looked down at my feet on the cold floor inside. Do I really need to dress like this all the time? I assume they put her in girls' clothes like shortly thereafterwards. They had given me a place to live for the time being, but hadn't been without conditions.
お前の身柄は新選組預かりとする。が、女として屯所へ置くわけにはいかねえ。
Or they kept her in boys' clothes. Never mind that. The Shinsengumi will look after you, but we can't have a woman running around our headquarters. As he explained, if rumors were to spread that the Shinsengumi were keeping a woman in their compound, tongues would begin to wag. It might even bring the people who were after my father to the Shinsengumi in search of me. Of course, they hadn't been able to determine whether or not he'd even been attacked. There were a great many questions left unanswered. We could ill afford any reckless decisions. Or so Hijikata had told me.
だから、お前には断層を続けてもらう。面倒だろうが辛抱してくれ。
In other words, we need to keep you pretending to be a man. I doubt that's what you wanted to hear, but you do it or we're out on our ass, dear? Yes. His reasoning was sound, but perhaps more than that, I knew he was looking out not only for the Shinsengumi, but also for the safety of my father and myself. I didn't have a choice to curse, but knowing that made following his orders at least somewhat more palatable.
たとえ君にその気がなくとも、女性の存在は体内の風紀を乱しかねませんしね。
I doubt you could do it intentionally, but the presence of a woman could disrupt morale, so to speak. His tone suggested he was joking, but it was clear that he was telling the truth.
ですから、私たち幹部のほか、大使たちへも君の事情は話しません。
For that reason, only we, the Shinsengumi leadership, will know the truth of our situation. If word to get out, there was no telling how fast rumors could spread, or where to. I had to stay a boy. All right then, what should I do while I'm here?
屯所では何もしなくていい。部屋を一つやるから引きこもってろ。
Nothing. You're going to get a room and you're going to stay in it.
あれおかしいな。この子、誰かさんの故障になるんじゃなかったですか？
Really? I could have sworn we decided she was going to be someone's page. Ichikata turned towards Okida and his eyes narrowed.
いいか、掃除。てめえは余計な口出しせずに黙ってろ。
Oh, they dropped the F-bomb in this game. At least in the Americanized version. Soji, keep your tongue in your mouth or I'll cut the fucking thing off. Extreme. Extreme! Before long, I'd been there for a week. And we'll find out how this week begins in the next episode of Hakuōki, Stories of the Shinsengumi. Will Hinata be able to survive, staying as basically a prisoner of the Shinsengumi? Will she find her father? And will she fall for one of the many handsome lads of this story? Find out next time. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you in the next episode.